Hello, hello, everyone. I am super excited to be here with you today with thunderstorms and sun where Noel is. But we're experiencing very different weathers right now. But I am super excited to have Noel here. And Noel, what are you going to be talking to us about today? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your topic.
Okay, so thank you so much, Monica, for coordinating this. I know how busy you are, and you always find a way to make things happen and bring people together. So thank you for asking me to do this session today. We're going to talk about mindset and self-talk. So we have this relationship with ourselves, and who do we spend more time with than ourselves, right? Ourselves is
Yeah.
the person that we spend the most time with. So taking a look at that relationship and really taking a closer look at our self-talk, the type of self-talk, and our mindset, and how those can play a role in that relationship with ourselves.
Mhm.
So I want to just kind of invite folks and thank them for joining our session. And let's just imagine that we're all coming together to have an early dinner. And I have made certain stations for you that look really appealing. And I'm going to give a plate to everyone, and I'm going to ask you to come along all of these stations and fill up your plate with what looks appealing and interesting. And you're going to be hearing about some information and some tips and strategies that will hopefully really help transform mindsets for the better and self-talk for the better. So,
Fantastic.
yeah.
Fantastic. We cannot wait. But I think it's also important, Noel, for people to know what's your background and how did you land it on this? Because knowing that information, it changes a lot of people's perspective in terms of the topic that you're going to be talking about. So can we get a little bit of that background before we get fully started?
Absolutely. So I'm a former classroom teacher and learning specialist. I am a mom of four sons. I'm an author of two books, ABC Worry Free, which is a teaching tool for anxiety, and Are You a Bird Like Me, are children's books. And I'm an anxiety coach and an educational consultant. I call myself a neuroeducational consultant because I really focus on the brain and how we can use some neuroscience findings to our advantage in the classroom, in our jobs, in our relationships, and in life.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So, with further ado, here I left you with Noel, and we just have one more tip. What is the tip for our audience today, Noel?
Well, the tip is to join in with us to the conversation. And I don't want people to think that I am making this little symbol disrespectfully. We had a little issue with our technology, and Monica is so kind to help me with the slides and advance them. So if you see this little gesture, I'm just sending that message to Monica because I won't be able to see her.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, here we go. Enjoy. And thank you, Noel, so much for doing what you do and giving us this consultation today.
I am so super excited. So yes, here are just a little picture of the covers of two of my books, and let's see our agenda for today. So we can start with our first slide. We're going to talk about what is mindset, what is self-talk, and then we're going to talk about, well, why do these matter? And then we're going to talk a little bit about the traps that hold us back. And then we're going to wrap it up by really learning some strategies to help you move forward. I like to start all of my workshops. I do a lot of work with families, with organizations, with schools, all different kinds of institutions. And I really love this quick mind body check. And the reason I do it is I want us to always develop a good sense of self awareness of where we are in a certain moment. You know, if we're coming to a meeting or a workshop, no matter what we're doing, we're starting to learn something. It's important to know kind of what state are we in. So I want you to just start to notice, what are some of the thoughts going through your mind? Is your mind racing? What does your body feel like? Do you feel some tightness? Do you feel your heartbeat beating fast? Any kinds of physiological changes you might note. So I'd love for you to just take a look at that chart and just choose which one kind of sounds like you in this moment. There's no right or wrong answer. And no matter where you are in this moment, and you can throw it in the chat if you want to share how you're feeling, just if you are feeling that you need to have a little more focus or you need to calm down a little bit, need to pump the brakes a bit, know that you always have something at your disposal, and that is your breathing. So you can always slow things down with your breathing. And I'm going to show you in this next slide one particular breathing practice that I really love. All right, Monica, thank you. It's called 4-6 breathing. And that just is about inhaling for 4 seconds and exhaling for 6 seconds. And when we do a longer exhale, that can slow down the game for us, and just kind of help us focus. And it can send a good message to our mind and body to just pump the brakes a little bit. And when I teach this, I like to start by putting my hand on my chest and my hand on my belly. And the reason for that is if we are having distracting thoughts or anxious thoughts, or we're feeling frustrated, that can fill up our mind with, and that can affect our mindset and our self-talk. So we want to kind of just dial into our senses. So we're going to do 3 of these in a row. And as we start, I want you to just notice the rise of your chest and your belly as you inhale. And as you exhale, feel that chest and belly deflate. All right, here we go. Inhale for 4. Exhale for 6. Let's do a second one. Inhale for 4. And exhale for 6. And one more. You may notice that air going in through your nose, out through your mouth. Inhale for 4 seconds. And exhale for 6 seconds. And this is something I do with kids of all ages, with adults, and it's just a great way to reset so we can move forward in a good state to learn. All right. So, what is mindset? It's that sense of attitude or beliefs that can really influence how we view ourselves or the world. And then, what is self talk? It is that inner voice that we hear, and it's about how we talk about ourselves or we talk to ourselves. And sometimes many of these thoughts and this inner voice come from a place of our unconscious, and many of these thoughts actually could have started when we were quite young in childhood. And why do they matter? Well, they can really affect our ability to, let's say, our mood, just how we feel. It can affect our ability to get started on something or be focused. When we talk negatively about ourselves, it can make us just feel badly. And then that can increase our stress, lower our resilience, and then it can also affect our performance. And then it can also affect our mental health and our relationships, how we respond to challenges. And it sounds like quite a big thing, but it is. It can really affect how we lead our lives and the direction we head. So we know that thoughts and self-talk aren't always true, yet they can make up our reality. So I would love to ask you just what type of self-talk are you noticing today, right? And if you feel like putting that in the chat, go right ahead. But I really want to encourage you to start to notice that. All right, so thank you for that, Monica. All right, and we can move on to the next one there. Thank you. And now I'd like you to start to think about this self-talk, this inner voice, and start to think about, okay, if you were driving along and you're listening to a radio, you're listening to a certain station, right? What station are you listening to for a good part of your day? And I want you to start to challenge yourself. Is your self-talk and mindset, is it moving you forward or is it holding you back? So let's take a look at, there's different kinds of self-talk and mindset. There's unproductive and there's productive. And some types of unproductive self-talk could be catastrophic. When we use language that's kind of belittling and self-defeating, or when we're comparing ourselves to others or focusing on our weaknesses. And sometimes we might talk about ourselves as if we're a fraud or an imposter syndrome, or we're not good enough or measuring up. I want you to start to notice when you're using that kind of language to talk about yourself, or when you're thinking about yourself in that way. Because what that does is it sends false alarm messages to your brain. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a perceived threat and a real life threatening emergency. And when you talk about yourself in such unproductive ways and using catastrophic language or self-defeating language, it can send a message to the brain that there is an emergency, like a mayday, mayday. And then this can trigger this part of your brain that then, sends this alarm message. And then you start to feel differently in your body. And then you can go to fight, flight, or freeze very quickly. And when that happens, your best thinking skills go offline. Your ability to remember, to reflect, to keep your emotions in check, to get started on something, to plan it, to finish something, all those things can go offline. So we really want to notice that self-talk. And then some productive types of self-talk could be when you're talking to yourself in supportive ways or objective ways. If you're talking to yourself with some sense of compassion, giving yourself a break, open to growth, and really starting to challenge those beliefs about yourselves that very often are not true, and giving yourself a sense of validation. I have an anxiety disorder, and I used to just dismiss how I felt. And very often I felt dismissed when I mentioned that I was anxious about something. And that didn't necessarily help me start to deal with the anxiety. So validate how you feel. And then we don't want to stay stuck there. We want to reframe how we're thinking and feeling in ways that are more productive so that we can move forward. So that just gives you a sense of some productive and unproductive talk. Here are some examples of unproductive talk. And if you see some of that unproductive language, if you want to throw in the chat some things that you're noticing, like you might see some catastrophic language. So it might say something like, that was a disaster, so I'm not trying that again. So you get that sense of self-limiting, not believing in change. Things are hopeless. I'm hopeless. If I make a mistake, I'll look like a loser. This always happens to me. I never measure up or do things right. So all that kind of unproductive talk is sending those alarm messages to the brain. And I chose these specifically because these are very, common kinds of self-talk that we sometimes use. I hear this a lot with kids, but I hear it a lot with adults as well. So start to notice those and try to catch them. And then be aware that those kinds of self-talk can really start to hold you back. So there's 5 that are very common that are mindset and self-talk traps. So we saw examples of that catastrophic language, or when you're really labeling yourself harshly. We saw that all or none thinking, like, if this didn't go well this time, it will never go well, or I always mess up. So that all and never. Or feeling that you're an interloper. You're believing those false narratives about yourself, many of which come from our unconscious. Start to challenge those. Maybe you find yourself ruminating, where you're just on spin cycle, that inner radio just keeps playing over and over, but one that's unproductive. Your brain can sometimes think that you're in problem solving mode there when you think about something over and over, but what you're actually doing is just chewing on cud. You're really not moving forward. You're just regurgitating it. So really catch yourself when you start to ruminate the same things over and over, especially when they're unproductive. And then a fixed mindset, I want you to start to be aware of that. I'm not sure of how many of you are already familiar with mindset. Carol Dweck, Dweck, is an author of a book called Mindset, which I am a huge fan of. I found it to be a game changer for me. I use it in a lot of my workshops. And her research has led us to, she has determined that, you have it too, that there are two types of mindsets, a fixed mindset and a growth one. And the fixed tends to not really value the power of change and effort and practice and being receptive to feedback. Very often, it's just kind of thinking what you get at birth is what you have for your life. It's carved in stone. Either you're good at sports, or either you're outgoing, or either you're a musical person. It's what you got at birth. So, of course, we all have certain predispositions or certain strengths and talents. However, we can get better at everything. Even if you don't consider yourself to be an athlete, you can get better at certain things. So the growth mindset believes that what you got at birth is really just the starting point. And then through practice, through effort, through intent, through feedback, you can start to really make some strides and improvement. So we really want to start to be mindful of those traps, because these will hold us back. All right, thank you, Monica. And I want you to start to pay attention. Let's go back to that last one about the language of failure. I think that was, yeah, thank you. We want to be mindful about how we think about failure. If you're anything like me, as a kid, I was petrified of mistakes, petrified of failure. I would do things to avoid challenges because I was afraid I might not succeed. So I might not take a class that's really challenging, or I might not try out for a team that I didn't think I was going to make. And that kind of thinking really was in a fixed mindset, where I was feeling judged and was feeling that I had to prove myself. And if I didn't succeed, that meant I was a failure. So that kind of thinking I really had to work on, and start to notice that. If you find that that resonates for you, and you look at failure or mistakes as something to avoid or something shameful, start to notice your language and really start to reframe that and use language that informs and guides, and uses, that kind of process oriented kind of language, versus using language about perfectionism or shame or blame. I love this acronym. When you think about fail, think about it as your first attempts in learning. So when you're learning something new, could be in school or it could be a skill, of course, you're going to make mistakes. And that is part of the learning process, to be expected. So just kind of shifting our mindset about failure and mistakes can be super helpful. I can share a quick story. So with my two books that I've written, ABC Worry Free and Are You a Bird Like Me? When I first wrote my first children's book over 30, well, it was when my son was very young, my oldest son, 36 years ago. And I wrote the book, sent it out to publishers, and it didn't get picked up by anyone. And what did I do with that manuscript when I was rejected from everyone? I just threw it in my drawer and put it away and didn't take it out for over 30 years. And through this book, Mindset, and really starting to shift how I think about challenges, how I think about things that didn't go so well, it really was life-changing for me. I started to think, okay, if you want to write another book, let's do more research. Let's get some feedback. Let's try a different approach and see if that produces better results. And if not, failure is really part of the process. And I'd rather put myself out there and give it a shot than never put it out there and just always wonder what would have happened. So I really put a lot of time and effort into changing my mindset and my approach. And thankfully, I did end up publishing 2 books from there. So thinking about that, and let's move on. Monica, try going back one. I think there was a slide about growth mindset. There we are. Thank you. I just wanted to point out a couple examples for you so you can see that difference in the language. So, for example, in a growth mindset, you would be saying things to yourself like, I can continue to grow and improve. Mistakes help me learn. I'm not good at this yet. That word yet is super powerful, and that sends a different message to the brain that there's hope and you can move forward. So I can try a new approach or ask for help. A fixed mindset might be thinking, I can't make mistakes. They might be afraid of judgment. Um, I will quit if I don't get it right away. Sometimes the fixed mindset might say, I'm not even going to try because that way I won't be embarrassed. Better to just not do anything than to try and fail. And some folks might think my friend can do it, but I'll never get it. So you can hear that global language. You can see the sense of not believing in change, and it's very self limiting. So start to notice that because that can send some very self defeating, limiting messages to you. All right. Thank you. And we can move on to the next one. And here I just wanted to do a quick little demo for you. I love to do this little demo. I do this with kids and adults. I want you to imagine that your brain is like this beautiful snow globe. And you can see right now that it's clear. So if our self-talk and our mindset is in a productive state, our brain's going to be pretty clear. And if you imagine that all that glitter at the bottom of the snow globe is all the things you're working on, all the things that you're learning, all your thoughts and feelings, this is going to stay nice and clear when we stay in that productive zone of self-talk and mindset. Now, let's say that we start getting really super frustrated or angry, or we start to get very unproductive with our self-talk and our mindset. What's going to happen is all of those thoughts, all our feelings are going to get all swirly and mixed up, and our brain is going to get cloudy. And if we have an unproductive mindset and our self-talk is in that catastrophic or global or self-limiting, those categories, it's going to start to get swirly. And it'll be hard for us to get started on something. It will be hard for us to stay regulated, emotionally. And it'll be harder to finish something that we've started. So you can always do something when you get into that state. You can start to notice and do that breathing that we did at the beginning. And then I'm going to show you a couple strategies that you can do in addition to the breathing that can help you with your mindset. So I want you to now imagine the power of learning to change the station. So as we were imagining that you're driving along in your car and you don't like the station that you're listening to, what do? You change the station. Well, you can do that too when your self-talk goes into that unproductive, fixed mindset kind of side. And we all have a fixed mindset to some degree. It's normal from time to time that we might have some unproductive thoughts or fixed mindset thoughts. It's really important to notice them, and we can stop them in their tracks before they start to grow. So if you can imagine changing that station, if you can go back to that for 1 sec, that you will really start to become your own best friend and coach. And this is really going to bring the stress level down and help you experience more productive emotions. And this will have other outcomes, such as increasing your self-worth and your confidence and your motivation, willpower, and your productivity. That unproductive mindset will get in the way of your performance and all those other areas. So there's a lot of good outcomes that can come from it. So your potential is unlimited. And let's dive into some strategies about how we can change that station. So there's 5 steps that we can follow that can really help us transform that mindset and self-talk. So the first thing is, you've heard me use this word notice a lot. Notice your inner dialogue. So notice that inner radio. What is it saying? What are you saying to yourself? What kind of language are you using? What kind of mindset are you in? And one way to just kind of give yourself a little more space to detach yourself a little bit sometimes from your self-talk and your mindset is to refer to yourself by your name. or a third person. So you could refer to yourself, I might say, okay, Noel, I'm noticing that you're using catastrophic language. That's not going to help right now. Or sometimes people come up with a funny name. You might say, Miss Bossy, just making up something. Oh, Miss Bossy, that's not going to help right now that you're um, talking to yourself in that way. So come up with like a funny name, um, or just refer to yourself as your first name instead of saying, oh, I always mess up or I never measure up. Try to just create a little distance there. And then you can actually name your unproductive thoughts and language or your emotions. Dan Siegel, a psychiatrist, says name it to tame it. So just kind of naming, oh, Noel, I'm noticing that you're being catastrophic or you're being global. I need you to shift your thinking right now. That's not going to be very, very helpful. And then validate. Okay, I am feeling some frustration now. I'm having a hard time. Start to validate how you feel. And then you can reframe with some productive language and habits. So let's get into a couple of the strategies that we can use to teach you how to change the station. All right, so we can go to the next slide. So flip the script is one of my favorites. So here's an example. So imagine that you were thinking, oh, I'm such an idiot. I completely butchered that presentation. My career's over. I want you to try to flip the script by now saying something in place of that has more productive language and validates. So you could try, well, that was tough. I'll improve my approach with better preparation. I'll rehearse more, ask for feedback, or take a public speaking course to boost my skills. So that's going to send a very hopeful message to the brain. It's validating how you feel, and it's giving you some action steps to help you move forward. And let's take a look at the next example. So instead of saying, I'll never finish in time, this is a disaster of a week, try reframing it with more productive language. I have a lot on my plate, so you can hear that validation, and I'm going to take it one step at a time. I can delegate some of the work and ask for help when needed. And what you're going to notice is both are challenging situations that you're in, but you're sending your brain and body a different message. You're sending the message, I got this is hard, and I can handle it. So using that language that helps support that, and it's productive and it's action oriented, versus being catastrophic or self-limiting or labeling yourself in unproductive ways. All right, and let's take a look at, here's some examples of how we can flip the script. So we can change I can't to how can I. So at the top, you're going to see some examples that kind of reflect more of a fixed mindset. And then as you see the bottom, the lighter blue squares are examples of how you can flip the script to a growth mindset. And that is going to just send a whole different message to the brain, and you're going to be much more productive. And then my next strategy is the ABC strategy from my book, ABC Worry Free. And we can change that. Thank you. And this involves 3 steps. Accept how you feel, breathe slow and deep, and change your thinking. So this is similar to flip the script, but you'll note, because you notice that what I've added with this strategy is the validation part. So accept how you feel. It's really super important. And then adding that B step with the breathing, that's that way that you can just pump the brakes a little bit, bring that stress down a notch, or hopefully several notches if needed. And then that C part is about changing your thinking. So the flipping of the script comes into play at this 3rd step. And let me show you an example in this next slide here. So let's say, for example, that we find change to be scary, right? Now, we want to accept that's how you feel. Now, you might be thinking things like, I can't change. This is the way I am. It's impossible to teach myself to think more productively. That's going to rev up the brain. It's going to send those alarm messages. You can do your breathing to kind of help pump the brakes. And then you can reframe how you think about it by changing your thinking. And here's one example of how you can turn that kind of scary thought or that threat into a new opportunity. And you could think something like, while it will take effort, intent, and practice, I can train my brain to change for better. So that thought in green is going to send a really hopeful, powerful message to the brain. But if you're thinking, I can't change, this is the way I am, this is impossible, you're sending those alarm messages to the brain. So this is just, I'm encouraging you just to think of how you could use this 3-step strategy on your own with something that you're finding challenging with your mindset or with your self talk. And what I do, I use this strategy regularly. I use flip the script regularly. I use the breathing regularly and many other strategies that we can talk about another day. But I actually will take pictures of them. I post them in my workspace or places where I can see them. I might put them in a journal. I would take pictures and put it in my phone. And I might need to review them because at the beginning, when you're learning something that's new, it's going to take practice and it's going to need reinforcement. So it's not something that you can just learn overnight. It's going to take some time. So I encourage you, to practice this. And then let's see on our next slide here, just we're kind of wrapping up. When you do add new language and habits, you can change your life. And you will need a plan though, and just like if some of you work out or go to the gym, it's not something you do just once and expect immediate results. It's something that it's going to take some time and practice and intent. And so I encourage you to learn about your brain and to learn about those 5 steps. Come back. You can review this presentation anytime. Um, Learn about the 5 common traps, things that might hold you back, and take a look at some of the visuals and the reminders that maybe you posted around your room. And honestly, learn different ways to reset yourself. Um, I shared with you the breathing and the ABC strategy and flip the script. Those are great strategies. Um, and then schedule these in for practice. I honestly, if I really want something to happen, I need to schedule it in. So I encourage you to do that. And when you add new information into your brain and you practice it, you will have a new outcome. So I really want to encourage you to try these things. And we can wrap it up. So these are just some reminders. I've already shared these with you already. And as we finish up, I just want to leave you with some really powerful mindset and self-talk affirmations. And I want you to start to say these things out loud, right? And say them every day. Say them several times a day. My challenges help me grow. I do amazing things. I choose to be courageous and confident. I can work through my challenges. I believe in myself. If this feels odd, to be expected. If you're not used to talking to yourself in this way, it'll feel a little bit odd. So keep at it. It will feel more comfortable as you get more accustomed to it. And I am so grateful for you joining me tonight. And I really hope that you have a nice full plate from the different stations that you visited and that you can use this information to your advantage to really build a better relationship with yourself regarding self-talk and your mindset. So love for you to follow me on social media platforms. You can be in touch with me by email, check out my website. And I'd love to hear from folks what they find helpful and love for you to check out my books. They're great resources for kids and adults. So thank you, Monica, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Noel. It was fantastic having you here. I think the first slides, people were like, "Oh, I do that a lot. I do that a lot," and then the rest it just sinked in, right? Like it's to absorb. And I think it was amazing that in such a short period of time we can obtain so much valuable information, right? Because we are guilty to always default to the negativity of our mindset, right? Like it's just easier sometimes, right? It takes too much
Yeah.
effort for us to be positive and to exercise these things that you're teaching us. But with practice, with reminders, with the right tools, we can certainly get there. I remember my daughter, I think she was in first grade. I actually going to send you a video about my daughter giving me a speech from the stairs, and she's like 6 years old, about fixed mindset versus growth mindset. I'm gonna send it to you right now
I
after
would
we done
love
here.
that. I would love
And she was like doing a speech. He have us sit down on her little chairs down the stairs, and I was like, why does my 6 year old have to be giving me this type of talk, right? And it's perspective. It's all about perspective. So thank you so much for sharing it with us. Thank you for being here, and we cannot wait until we see you next. And like Noel said, please get her books. It is really amazing. I know that they are children's books, but not really.
I try to keep parents in mind so that it keeps them entertained, and then they can hopefully get something out of it too.
Yeah, I think we have to make that really clear
Yeah.
that this is actually more for the parents than for the kids. Again, thank you so much for your time, everything you put together here. And I know that this is going to help so many people and a lot of our viewers. So I appreciate you. Thank you for being here today, and have an amazing day.
You too. Thank you, Monica.
Take care,
Yeah.
guys. Bye bye.